Welcome to my channel. Please watch the full stories and subscribe me.
My name is Sunita. I was 11 years old. We had only been living in this neighborhood for a few days. I was the only child of my parents. I had no siblings. Because of this, I used to sit at home alone. I didn't like this new neighborhood at all. In my previous neighborhood, I had many friends, but my father had bought a house in a new society. Although it was a very clean and neat society, I just didn't feel at home there. My father had enrolled me in a new school located in this neighborhood, so I hadn't made friends with any girls there yet. Once, I was sitting on a wooden platform tucked in my courtyard when I heard a hissing sound. I looked left and right, and then my eyes fell upon a boy on the upper roof of the house built to the right. He said, "Will you be my friend?" He was eating an apple he held in his hand while asking me. I said, "I don't make friends with boys." Hearing my words, he began to laugh. He said, "I've been watching you for a week. You sit alone and keep crying. Besides, I'm not exactly a boy, I'm just a child, only 11 years old. Look, I have very good toys. If you become my friend, you will benefit a lot." Then he added, "If you become my friend, you'll get to eat ice cream too. Think it over carefully and tell me tomorrow. I'll meet you right here." He stepped back a bit, but the next moment he looked at me again and said, "By the way, I also have very beautiful dolls that I only give to my friends. Give that some thought too. If you befriend me, I can give you a doll." Having said this, he left. I wasn't particularly interested in befriending this boy because I already had many toys. However, my mother wouldn't let me have dolls, so I didn't own any. Whenever I told her I wanted to buy a doll, she would buy me a teddy bear instead. She used to say, "I don't like dolls at all, so you won't play with dolls either." My mother imposed her every whim on me. Therefore, I thought there was no harm in befriending this boy because I was already bored playing with my other toys. I wanted a doll. The next day when I went into the courtyard, I kept looking toward his roof, but even after waiting a long time, the boy didn't appear. I felt quite disappointed. I thought, I wish I had told him yesterday that I wanted to be his friend. Just as I was about to go back to my room, I heard the hissing sound. I saw him standing on the roof, laughing. Then, pointing his finger, he said, "So, you were looking for me, weren't you? I know, I was on the roof all along, just hiding, watching to see if you were waiting for me by looking at my roof repeatedly." I found this behavior of his quite annoying. Was this any way to act? Then he asked, "So, what have you decided?" I replied, acting as if I were doing him a favor, "Look, you've asked me so many times since yesterday, so I'm thinking that if you give me a doll, then I'll be your friend." The smile on his face deepened. He said, "Wait a minute." Saying this, he went down from the roof. I stayed standing there, thinking he had gone to get the doll. But a short while later, my front doorbell rang. When I opened the door, it was the same boy. He was holding a shopper bag. He entered the house with great familiarity and handed the bag to me. He said, "It's so hot at this time, don't even ask about the outside. I've come here hiding from my father, just for you." Saying this, he closed the door of my house himself. He was a very informal type of person. Then he took out a very beautiful doll from the bag and gave it to me. He said, "Look at this, it's just like you, innocent and beautiful." I took the doll, but the moment I pulled it out of the bag, I received a huge shock. There were marks of wounds drawn on the doll's face, as if the doll were injured. And the clothes the doll was wearing were torn in various places. I asked, "What have you done to this doll?" He replied, "I don't know, I don't do all this." I asked, "Then who does?" He said, "My father." I asked, "What does your father have to do with toys?" He replied, "I don't know, he likes dolls a lot, and when he brings a doll, he breaks it himself in a fit of rage." It was through this boy that I learned he also lived alone in the house with his father. His mother had passed away. Regardless, I became friends with Jawad. That was the boy's name. My mother also had no objection to this. Jawad would come to my house every day and we would play. Sometimes cricket, sometimes Ludo, sometimes with toys. He always brought a new doll for me, which was always like that, with wound marks painted on its face, hair loose and disheveled, and clothes torn in places. Seeing such a miserable-looking doll, I didn't even feel like playing with it. Therefore, I stopped playing with dolls. Once, Jawad said, "What's the matter? I come to your house to play every day, but you haven't come to my house to play with me even once. Come to my house with me today." I asked for my mother's permission, and she happily allowed it. I went to Jawad's house with him. He took me straight to his room. He truly had a vast number of toys. He said, "My father got all these for me." He too was a victim of loneliness. One gets tired of playing with toys alone. One finds peace and happiness only among friends of one's own age. Such was the case with Jawad, and perhaps with me too. I was also playing with those toys when the door to Jawad's room opened. A man was standing there. He was about my father's age. Upon seeing me with Jawad, there was surprise in the man's eyes. He asked Jawad who I was. Jawad said, "Dad, she's my friend." Hearing this, the man sat down beside me with a smile. "This is such a lovely doll, just like a Barbie doll." Saying this, the man sat next to me and began to stroke my cheek with the back of his hand. I don't know why, but I felt a sense of grief, discomfort. I didn't like this man's touch. I immediately pulled back and stood up. I said, "Jawad, I'm going home." Jawad kept calling out to me, but I went home. As soon as I entered the house, I went straight to my room. I don't know why, but I felt as if my cheek was burning. It wasn't that this was the first time someone had praised me. I looked like a Japanese doll, golden brown eyes, golden brown hair, and a fair, milky complexion. Whoever saw me would keep staring for a few moments. But this man's way of looking, his touch, was very different. I was an only child, so I had a lot of innocence and childishness. Furthermore, my mother had kept me unaware of many things, the kind of knowledge that many households have now started giving. Explaining good and bad touch, who to go near and who not to. I couldn't understand my own state, but this intuition is perhaps naturally present in every woman. If someone looks at them with an evil eye or touches them with wrong intentions, they recognize it immediately. Those eyes rising upon me didn't feel right, but I didn't know how to tell or explain it. I remained in this state for a while, but then I became fine again. The next day, when Jawad came to my house, he asked why I had left. He said those were his dad's words and that he was praising me a lot. I didn't give any answer, but now I started going to Jawad's house to play. Often, his dad would come into Jawad's room, sit on a chair, and stare at me intently. I don't know what kind of sharp gaze that man had, but a restlessness would overcome me. I couldn't understand why he was looking at me. Once, while Jawad and I were playing, Jawad's father said to me, "Child, why are you so nervous around me? Come here, come to me. Look at what I brought for you today." Saying this, he took a chocolate out of his pocket and showed it to me. I went to him happily because I loved chocolate. I took the chocolate from his hand, and the next moment he grabbed me and sat me on his lap. I was 11 years old at the time, although not very big, I wasn't tiny either. I felt very bad about his father's action. I said, "Uncle, let me go." He said, "Oh, what's wrong, child? Sit comfortably on my lap and eat the chocolate." I sit Jawad on my lap and feed him chocolate too. Jawad added, yes, he's like your papa too." Jawad took his share of chocolate from his father and sat on a chair to eat. At first, I sat in his lap for a while, feeling nervous. After that, I opened the chocolate and started eating. I wanted to finish the chocolate quickly and get off his lap, but by then, his hands had begun their insolence. His hands were moving over my body with abandon. He was sometimes stroking my back, and it became difficult for me to eat the chocolate. Within those 2 minutes, he had completely subjected my body to his touch, and I was such that my entire body was trembling. I immediately got off his lap, but the next moment he grabbed my arm and pulled me to himself. He hugged me tightly to his chest and began kissing my neck. My whole body felt as cold as ice. I screamed, "Let me go." Hearing this, the man suddenly let me go. I didn't say anything, I threw the chocolates there and came home. My heart was beating very fast. Tears were flowing from my eyes. I didn't even understand why I was crying, but I felt very bad. I had decided that I would never go to Jawad's house again. I had started to hate his father, but I had grown accustomed to playing with Jawad. I thought he would come to meet me the next day, and I would tell him that I didn't want to go to his house to play, and that he should just come to my house every day. But the next day, he didn't come at all. I waited for him all day. The day after that, Jawad still didn't come. Now I began to worry about him. My mom also asked, "Have you had a fight with Jawad?" I said, "Mom, I don't know why he hasn't come." Mom said, "Go to his house and ask." But I didn't want to go to his house. My mom was making biryani at the time. She said, "Do one thing, go give this plate of biryani to Jawad's house and play there for a while too." Hearing this, I remembered Jawad's father's behavior and I shuddered. I said, "I don't want to go to his house." My mother put biryani on a plate and said, "Fine, don't go to play, but at least deliver this biryani to Jawad's house." Just 2 days ago, he was telling me, "Auntie, whenever you make biryani, please send some for me." He's a poor motherless child. I knocked on the door and Jawad's father opened it. He took the plate of biryani from my hand and stepped back, saying, come inside." I said, No, I don't want to come inside, you take this biryani. Tell Jawad that Mom sent it for him. He said, "Jawad has a very high fever, even in his fever, he's calling for you." Hearing this, I couldn't help myself. I immediately entered the house and went straight into Jawad's room. He was indeed in a bad state, lying on the bed. I went to him, he said, "I've been sick for 2 days and you didn't even ask about me." I put the biryani on the side table and said, "My exams are coming up, so I was studying. Get well soon and come to my house to play with me." While I was talking to Jawad, I felt as if someone was standing behind me, running their fingers over my back. I recoiled in shock and saw his father smiling at me with malice. I immediately told Jawad I was leaving and stepped out of the room. As soon as I left the room, Jawad's father also came out, grabbed my hand, and took me to his room. I asked, "Where are you taking me?" "I have to go home," but after taking me into his room, he closed the door, locked it, and took off the small net dupatta I was wearing around my neck and threw it away. He picked me up and threw me on his bed. I was struggling with my hands and feet as hard as I could. He slammed me onto the bed very forcefully, and tears began to soak my pillow, drop by drop. That man had his hand pressed over my mouth. At the age of 11, I was raped. I was in a wretched state. That man was now threatening me, saying, "Beware, if you tell anyone anything, I will strangle you." Seeing his large, angry eyes and his furious tone, I was terrified. I told him trembling, "I won't tell anyone anything, but let me go." That man was a predator in human form. He left me and went out of the room. At that moment, there was only a sheet over my body. I put on my clothes and went home. My mother had probably fallen asleep in her room. I went to my room and burst into tears. I began to hate everyone and I started to fear every man. I lay senseless with fever for a week. My mother and father were worried about me, but when my fever got better, my mother mentioned in passing that Jawad was leaving the house. I wasn't sad about Jawad leaving, nor about anything else. I was only sad about the loss of my honor. Time passed, but I became completely silent. I wouldn't talk to anyone. Whenever my father affectionately placed his hand on my head, I would shrink back in fear. I had turned 20, but that incident was still fresh in my mind. I had completed 14 years of education. My father wanted me to study further at a university, but thinking that there would be boys there, I said I didn't want to study further. I had come to hate the very name of men. Wherever I saw boys, my heart would tremble violently. The cruelty that happened to me at a young age made my fear of men a natural thing. My life nearly left me when marriage proposals started coming for me. I couldn't include any man in my life. If on the wedding night he found out I wasn't a virgin, or even if he didn't, my fear would give a lot away. Whenever my mother told me about a proposal, my condition would deteriorate. I would start crying, saying I didn't want to marry anyone. Seeing this, my mother became very worried. My complexion was turning pale. I would cry like a madwoman, saying don't even mention a man's name in front of me. 2 more years passed, and my mother was exhausted from trying to explain that there is an age for girls to marry, and if that passes, good proposals don't come. I could neither tell them the reason nor get married. In view of my deteriorating condition, my mother took me to a psychiatrist. He was a young doctor. My mother told the doctor everything. That doctor asked me the reason, but I said nothing. He wrote a prescription for me. It was medicine for depression. The doctor said that some girls feel a fear of the marriage bond before marriage, wondering what this relationship is, and so they get nervous. And in some girls, this fear increases so much that their condition becomes like your daughter's. Even after 3 months of treatment, my condition remained the same. So the doctor said to my parents, "You guys go outside, I need to talk to this girl about something." But I gripped my mother's hand tightly. I said, "I don't want to be alone with any man." Seeing the yellowing pallor of my face, he kept looking at me intently. Then he said, "I want to come to your house." Hearing this, I asked, "Why do you want to come?" He didn't answer my question but told my parents, "I like your daughter. If you marry her off anywhere else, her behavior might make her husband suspicious, but I am a doctor, so I can understand her condition better, and the cure for this is marriage itself." Hearing this, I got up in anger and went outside. When my mother came out of the doctor's room, she was very happy. As soon as I got home, I said I wouldn't marry anyone. My mother didn't reply, she just said, "We won't marry you off." But a few days later, that same doctor was present at our house, along with a few of his friends. My mother suddenly dropped a bombshell on me, saying, "It's your nikah, so when the nikah registrar comes, don't refuse. It's just the nikah, we won't do the rukshati sending off to the groom's house yet." I couldn't even understand what was happening. Regardless, my nikah was performed with this doctor. After the nikah, that doctor came into my room. I was surprised to see why he had come. He came to me and said, "Come with me, I want the rukshati today." Hearing this, my life nearly left me. I said I didn't want to go with anyone. A tremor suddenly began to overcome my hands and feet, but this man didn't let me think anything. He grabbed my hand and brought me out of the room. He told my parents, "I am taking my wife with me, and she is my responsibility now. Until her treatment is complete, I request you not to come to my house." Saying this, he brought me out of the house, forced me into his car, and took me to his home, to his room. As soon as he closed the room door, my color turned white, and my condition became uncontrollable. I was shivering. When he came near me, I went and leaned against the wall of the room. I said, "Don't come near me." He came even closer and said, "Why shouldn't I come near you? Who can leave such a beautiful wife?" He came to me and I said, "If you knew the truth, you would leave me." Saying this, I burst into tears. I was tired of carrying the burden of this truth. He said, "That is exactly what I want to know." I asked, "Did you marry me just to find this out?" I was amazed at this man, who marries someone for such a small reason. He said, "Yes, I married for this reason. Now tell me, why are you afraid of marriage?" He asked, holding my cold and trembling hand. I said, "Knowing the truth, you will leave me." He said, "That's a matter for later." Weeping, I told him everything. Hearing this, he said, "Do you know who I am?" Then he said, "I am Jawad." Then he added, "That man was not my biological father, he took me from an orphanage." As I grew up, that man began to subject me to sexual abuse as well, but I was helpless, so I couldn't do anything. Therefore, as soon as I grew up a bit, I would hit him and keep him away from me. Then he stopped bothering me. He also started staying sick, and 2 years ago he died of AIDS. I understood your pain because I have endured all this too. I suspected it was you when I first saw you, but then upon following you and seeing the house, I became certain that my childhood love was true. That's how you reached me. I was astonished hearing his words. He was telling me, forget the old things, the life ahead is very beautiful.